Oh, there. There. Oh no, I pressed the wrong button. No. I always do that. No. You know, it's probably quicker to just do this. Got them speedrun strats. Are you happy now? You're on camera now. Are you happy? I've moved it just for you. You good? Alright. It was this one. This is my opening thing. Green power. I don't think I've seen the green one on this one. Because all the other ones require red. Or not. Why the hell would I want to go see blood? It'd be way too scary. This wasn't a haunted house or a horror movie. People were really dead, and the killer was still on the loose. I didn't want to go anywhere that could be even the slightest bit dangerous. Actually, what was the new gen killer's motive anyway? Was it just some crazy person with a few screws loose? Well, there you go. Alright, ow! Man, you're a dick. You're an asshole. Alright. Fix the camera. Dickhead. Was it just some crazy person with a few screws loose, doing it for fun? That was probably the safest assumption. Not that I cared anyway, it had nothing to do with me. By the way, I happen to be a bit of a mass murderer myself. What's more, no matter how many I killed, everybody still called me a hero. Of course, this was an ESO, lol. Just comparing me and the killer made it clear how much better 2D is than reality. QED, I can't remember what QED is. How do I check that? I don't remember. That's a thing, right? That's one of the little tidbits. Q. I don't remember how the alphabet goes, apparently. Also, there's no Q. So, nope. Don't know what that means. Moving on. I desperately tried to refuse Misumi's offer, while imagining myself delivering a flurry of violent jabs. The murderer? Oh yeah, I'll kick their butt the second I see them. In my delusions, at least, I could kill anybody, and save anybody, too. But anybody who actually went and did that stuff in the real world was just an idiot. They weren't thinking about what would happen next. The new gen killer, for example, was surely going to be caught before too long. Then they'd spend the next few decades in prison before finally being given the death penalty. I knew exactly what I wanted to say to them. You should have just done it in your delusions. Speaking of, I went to buy dinner. I took the route I always used to go to the local convenience store. From the base, it took about 3 minutes to get there. I knew the route well, with its filthy, dark street. But today, it felt strange, like I'd wandered into another world. Everything looked the same as always, but it felt like I was coming here for the first time. It was the opposite of déjà vu. Jamais vu. Jamais vu? Jamais vu? I don't know how to pronounce that. They call it. I'd read about it on the internet once. So obviously I'm an expert. There was this odd smell, like rotting garbage. I could feel the humidity clinging to my skin. If I hadn't known better, I would have assumed it had just rained. The air felt sticky. And then the sound. I could hear a faint sound, like something dragging. I stopped to listen. The sound was coming from the back of a small alley on the left. At least, as near as I could tell. There were no streetlights, and all the houses around me had their lights turned off. So no matter how hard I looked, I couldn't see what was going on in there. It was hard to believe that you could find this kind of deep darkness in modern Japan, especially in Shibuya, which ranked alongside Shinjuku for being a city that never sleeps. It felt a little like a haunted house. No, there was one thing that made it different than a haunted house. This darkness wasn't artificial. I didn't want to go. Going in was a mistake. I tried to tell myself not to go in. But for some reason, my legs took a step forward, as if that sound I kept hearing was drawing me in. I felt terrified. I knew I shouldn't go any further. My heart was pounding. The sweat was pouring down my face. Someone's pretty static whispered in my ears. That's a weird way to describe a voice. Suddenly, someone grabbed my upper arm. It was so sudden. I panicked and I tried to scream, but I couldn't. The most I could do was squeeze the air out of the back of my throat. I wanted to run away in fear, but my body wasn't listening to me at all. My legs froze and refused to move so much as a millimeter. There was a hand grabbing my arm. I could see it. Oh, that's fun. It was deep green and thin like a mummy's, with blood veins protruding all around it. It didn't even look alive. I could easily have fallen to the ground and pissed myself right on the spot, but the voice felt strangely pleasant. The fear within me that had threatened to explode a moment ago gradually began to subside. A low, tense voice. I slowly turned around. The first thing I saw was the crest of Suime Academy. It was on the chest of a Suime uniform. The person was wearing a skirt, so probably this was a girl. But I didn't have the courage to look at her face. She was closer than I thought, and it was all I could do to look away. Something was wrong. I looked back at the hand holding my arm. It had thin, dainty... Wow, it's early for this. It had the thin, dainty fingers of a girl. It didn't look anything like the grotesque green thing I'd seen a moment ago. Who was this girl? What did her face look like? What does her face look like as she looks at me? What was she doing here? I couldn't tell why, but it felt like I knew this girl. As I looked at my arm and the pale white hand holding it, my mind began to create a delusion. This girl tied her hair with ribbons. Let me just double... I assume I'm probably... Okay. Yeah, I just have to describe the human. Alright. Yes. This one's pretty straightforward. Wore glasses. No. Wore over-the-knee socks. Again, memory of a goldfish. Yes. Wore a long skirt. Oh. Was posing like a soldier at attention. She do that. Yes, she do that thing. 1,000 doubts raced through my mind, but in the end, I couldn't speak a word. I just let my head hang there. The dragging sound stopped. And instead, I could smell... I could smell blood on her. Well, that was fun. Oh god, computer. Okay. I was sitting in front of my computer monitor. I gulped down some soda in an effort to contain my excitement, and then did a big stretch in my reclining chair. That was a good delusion, if I do say so myself. It even had a mysterious teenage girl. Maybe I could give her a name and make her a repeating character in my delusions. This was a little game I played a lot. I could cast her alongside another character, maybe Seritan? She seemed a different type than Seritan, though. Either way, the great thing about delusions was that you could mix up 2D and 3D, and in my delusions, I was God. Anything I wanted to happen, happened. Oh my Christ. I was so used to being in my base that I actually whispered aloud. I'd forgotten that this was a net cafe. I quickly put my hand over my mouth. I looked around. It didn't feel like anybody had heard me, at least. That's funny. 2 hours earlier from that. The hospital room was bathed in the orange. Oh, I see. This, that hospital room. Oh my god, my brain just short-circuited. Okay. The hospital room was bathed in an orange light of the setting sun, and it was quiet as if time itself had stopped. There was only one person in the room, a boy sitting in a wheelchair. He may have been asleep because he wasn't moving at all. It was dinner time, and at most hospitals you would see nurses quickly rushing between rooms to deliver meals. But there was a thing I pressed a button too quickly to read. But there was no sound coming from the hallway either. The door opened, breaking the silence. A girl came into the room. The boy on the wheelchair looked up at her, but didn't say anything. For a moment, she stood by the entrance. She looked around the room, with what seemed to be an expression of sadness on her face. The room was cramped and gloomy, and smelled like disinfectant. Oh my god. This was where the two of them lived. It was a place cut off from the rest of the world, where no one else ever came to visit. No doctors, no nurses, none of their family or the people they knew. The boy and the girl never spoke much. It was the boy who was hospitalized here. He'd been in a coma for an entire year and only woken up a month ago. The girl was simply living here. She trusted him, but there wasn't a physical relationship. There was certainly no romantic love between them. She simply wanted to repay her debt to him, nothing less and nothing more. The boy seemed to be treating her with a deliberate coldness. He'd even told her not to come, but she still came. Part of it was that she simply had nowhere else to go. While he was in his coma, she took care of him all by herself. When it was time to sleep, she slept on the sofa in the room. That hadn't changed even now that he'd woken up.
ご飯買ってきたよ。
She spoke in a gentle voice and showed him a plastic bag from a convenience store. Her voice seemed to shake the still air of the hospital room. It breathed life anew into a dead world, forcing movement to begin. At least, that was how it seemed to the girl. But she didn't care. Oh my god. She didn't share this thought with the boy. Instead, she set several small, cheap, individually wrapped pastries onto the currently unoccupied bed.
いつも思うんだけどさ、こんな食事で体は大丈夫？
もともと先は長くないから。買ってこさせてごめん。い
いの。私の分のついでだから気にしないで。
She laughed, a little too deliberately, then took her egg salad sandwich over to the windowsill. When she opened the window, a cool fall breeze blew into the hospital room. She let the pleasant feeling of the wind wash over her, and then sat down right on the window's edge. The hospital room was on a high floor. If she fell, she'd die instantly. But the girl showed no sign of fear and simply began to chow down on her egg salad sandwich. The boy in the wheelchair didn't say anything either, nor did he reach out for the pastries.
ねえ、もう一度聞くけど、本当に彼を覚醒させるつもり？
うん。昨日チャットをしてみてはっきりした。のぞみはすでに彼に目をつけている。ノア2も完成間近だし、急がないと。
どうしてもやるの？
そうだよ。
でもそれじゃのぞみと変わらない。彼に恐怖を与えて追い詰めて。
彼しかいないんだ。
彼が覚醒すればあなたは死ぬのに。
最初から覚悟の上だよ。彼に全ての責任を押し付けようとしている僕には相応の罰だと思う。
Girl was still looking out the window at the setting sun. She didn't turn back to look at the boy. From the look on her face, one might think she was about to cry.
彼を消すっていう選択肢はないかな。
そうなったら僕はまた1年以上昏睡する覚悟で新しい僕を生み出さないとね。その頃にはノア2は完成して世界には絶望が溢れているだろうけど。
The boy's voice was very gentle, but not without a note of bitterness. The girl had heard it and sighed.
私は、あなたのやり方には反対だな。
ノア2を完成させるわけにはいかない。
そうだけど、彼の立場を考えたら、悲しすぎるよ。それに、あなたが自殺しようとしているのを、むざむざ指をくわえて見ているわけにもいかないし。
自殺じゃないよ。
私が、なんとかする。
She spoke suddenly, her voice full of resolve. For the first time, the boy moved a little, as if surprised.
なんとかって？
The girl finished her egg salad sandwich, jumped down from the window, and turned to face the boy. For some reason, she made a pose like she was saluting.
私が、望みから、彼を守る。
She do that.
そうすれば、あなたは死なないから。
それじゃあ、彼が生まれた意味がなくなるし、何の解決にもならない。ノア2が。
ノア2も、私がなんとかするって。
君には、無理だよ。
もう、決めたの。
It just, like, it's such a tiny, tiny detail. But the fact that like, there's a tag on her skirt, that's so funny. That's just such a funny, like, tiny detail. I don't know why. Just that little tiny red tag. It's weird.
私は、あなたを守るために、あなたと対立します。
Her smile was gentle, but deeply fragile. When he saw it, the boy was at a loss for words.
あなたの予言によると、今日、新しい事件が起きるんだよね。
予言じゃない。事実だよ。彼らの妄想を見たからね。
だったら、彼をその事件に近づけさせないようにしなくちゃ。私、ちょっと行ってくるね。
The girl started walking toward the door.
君が邪魔をしても、僕は予定通り彼を目覚めさせるよ。
As she opened the door, she came to a stop. The hallway was empty. No one was there. That meant no voices and no other sounds. Oh my god.
ねえ。私たちって、何なんだろう。誰にも存在を知られずに、ここにもう1年以上いる。ここにいると、自分っていう存在は幻なんじゃないかって思えてきちゃうの。ジメジメ気分になるのは、やっぱり病院だからかな。
リミ、君は関わるべきじゃない。
His voice was plaintive as he begged her. The girl did not turn around.
パン、ちゃんと食べるんだよ。
As she left, that was all she said. She'd heard the sound too. At first, it was like a whooshing sound, like something slicing through the air. She had also seen the strange man who held the bag that made the sound. She chased him, but he'd gotten away. So this is like her side of this. Neat. It was after that when she heard the echoing of the other sound, the loud metallic sound of stakes being pounded into a wall. She could still hear the whooshing sound a little too. The two sounds seemed to resonate, making her ears hurt.
手遅れだった。
She bit her lip a little, then ran toward the source of the sound. What she saw there was a corpse staked into the wall in the shape of a cross. She panicked and looked around. In all honesty, she didn't care whether the victim on the wall was alive or dead. Of course, if they could be saved, that would be for the best, but it wasn't her highest priority. Takumi Nishijo couldn't be allowed to get anywhere near here. She had to keep him from feeling afraid. Mission failed. Where was he? She looked back at the body. It's more grotesque than it was before. Interesting. She couldn't believe her eyes. She'd only glanced away for a few seconds, but in that time, countless stakes had been embedded into the body. Only a moment ago, there had only been a few stakes. The body had been largely unharmed, with no signs of blood. But now, she was looking at something beyond belief. Shocked, she struggled to keep from throwing up. Her vision went blurry as she began to tremble.
妄想が
Ugh.
現
Yeah,
実を
that's
侵食してる。
gross. Oh my god, there's one in his eye? She realized that other things had changed too. Her clothes were different. She was wearing what seemed like some sort of high school uniform. She didn't recognize it at all. Her whole body was covered in blood, and in her hand she held cross-shaped stakes.
嘘。これって妄想がシンクロを。
Someone else's delusions were affecting what she saw. The brutal murder in front of her, her clothes, the brilliant red blood, were these real?
違う。
They weren't. Blood didn't smell like anything. The stakes in her hand had no weight and didn't feel cold. She touched the blood on her forehead. Just like she thought, there was no wetness, no slick sensation. Fearfully, she reached out toward one of the stakes, pinning the body in front of her to the wall. She tried to grab it, but her hand merely passed through it instead. It was all just a delusion. An incredibly powerful delusion. A delusion that could become real. It had already been created. All that was left was to real boot it, and it would become reality. She felt worried. What should she do now? She'd never been inside the territory of such a strong negative delusion. The gigalomaniac responsible may have already killed Takumi Nishijo. The body in front of her could transform into him at any moment. She let out a soft, panicked cry, and then...
あの時の将軍のリンク写真
She heard the voice of a frightened boy behind her. Alright, that was neat. Like, they got to see the other end of that. That's really cool. Oh. In a large general hospital in Yoyogi, it was time for rounds in the ward, so most of the nurses were away. There was only a single young nurse at the nurses' station. She was staring at her laptop expressionlessly. She had her cell phone to her ear, even though she wasn't on break. Is it the worst human in the world? That's not true. The second worst human in the world? Cell phones were forbidden in the hospital, but she made no effort to conceal herself. Her emotionless eyes were staring at a chat log on her laptop screen.
ええ、そう。
Ugh,
現れたのよ。西條匠が。
gross.
間違いないっすか？
That's the worst person in the world.
多分。
There was a man on the other end of the line. It was clear from the tone of their voices that they weren't talking about work.
名前はハンドルネームを使っているけれど、あの公式のことを知っていたもの。ログをコピーして送るわ。
With robotic movements, the nurse put her hand on the laptop's mouse and went to copy the log. Suddenly, she stopped and furrowed her brows.
ら、
どうしたんす？
She didn't answer, though. Instead, she squinted as she looked more closely at the monitor. Lol, what? The LCD screen still displayed a chat log, but something was different than it had just been a few seconds ago. There was no way it could change. This was a log, not a real chat. But a moment ago, there was nothing unusual about it at all. And now she could clearly sense that something was wrong.
ログの書き込み時間が変わってる。
どういうことだ？
The man must have sensed something, because he lowered his voice.
ついさっきまでは不自然なところなんてなかったのに、これ一体どうなって。
落ち着け。 相手は化け物級のギガロマニアックスだ。
細工されたのかしら。
自分の実在を知られたくないためだろう。
書き込み時間が変化したことで自作自演のように見えてくるわ。
そう見えるならそれが狙いってことだ。現実を妄想にした。気をつけろシノ。見られているぞ奴に。
Stop staring at the lol what. The nurse, Shino, felt a tickle at the nape of her neck. She covered her neck with her hands and glanced behind her, but there was no one else at the nurse's station.
信仰の救いあれ。
She offered up the prayer of her faith, as if to ward off the terror. Ugh. Their powers combined, they work together to become the worst. The absolute worst. Oh, I can mark off this on my handy dandy delusion spreadsheet. Good. She made the scary face. The spooky face. I forgot she was in here. Napping in my drawer. Oh my god, not. Sarah. Oh, this. Ah! Ah! Alright, this is, for some reason I don't have this one marked on my spreadsheet. I think I did it, but just for the sake of marking it on my spreadsheet. Okay. Consider it marked. I have now officially witnessed all versions of Delusion Triggers 1 through 35. So we're good. We're good for a while. Oh, was that him again? Oh man, I should have been paying more attention. I think that was him again. I think that was another background where I don't remember his name. Monster Dad. I don't remember. What is his name? Oh, it's gonna drive me nuts. I can't remember his name. The worst person. No, that's not true. He's the third worst person in this game. I think it's just another background where he's just chilling on the ground with a sign. I love that. I love that he's just in a bunch of the scenes. I'm gonna have to keep an eye out for that more. How are you doing down there? You don't want to come out and join me? You're making me look like a crazy person talking to myself. There's a cat down here, I promise. Although, is it any less crazy to just talk to the cat? I don't know. I do it though. I just want to get to the part where Rimi goes, meep, meep. Mm-hmm. It's really funny. My favorite thing. Nude gem. Rimi Sakihata was walking down the hall of Suimei High's second-year classrooms, with a blank look on her face. She wasn't used to this uniform yet, and she'd never been here before. The other students were ignoring her. She was actually really nervous, but she was trying her hardest not to show it. She headed for one of the classrooms, steps unsteady, but eyes locked dead ahead. She stopped right in front of class 2C.
ここか。
She already knew that this was Takumi Nishijo's class. She put her hand on the closed door. Only then did she realize that her fingers were shaking. I wish I could have just been a student here. The wish passed through her brain, but she didn't let it develop into a delusion. With a small sigh, she flung open the door.
みんな、おはよう。
Her blank expression was gone, as if it had never existed. She was loud and cheerful enough to startle the rest of the class. She put her right hand up to her forehead in something like a salute, and greeted the rest of the class. The class fell dead silent. School hadn't started yet, but half the students were already in their seats. They all looked at her, suspicious and confused. It was only natural that they would be. Nobody in this class, no, this entire school, knew that Rimi even existed. Who is this strange girl in our class? That's why she needed to ensure that she had everybody's attention. Her D-sword was in her hand, but nobody reacted. The blade, with its strange metallic wings, was still in the delusion stage, and nobody could see it. For now, that was enough. Her mind wove a delusion. Her feelings were unleashed in the eyes of everyone looking at her. They all blinked in unison. And the air in the room, which had frozen with Rimi's far too cheerful greeting, suddenly relaxed. Rimi smiled at the classroom once more.
おはよう。
おはよう、咲畑。
That's...
Oh, sir.
Damn! That's neat.
リミ、朝っぱらから声大きすぎ。
もっと静かに入ってこいよな。
They all spoke to her as if they'd known her for a long time. A few seconds ago, the class hadn't known her at all. That had just changed. Rimi's delusion was transmitted to their minds, creating a shared awareness. The entire class became aware of the fact that Rimi Sakihara was a classmate of theirs in Class 2C at Suime Academy. 2 days ago, she'd tried it on Takumi Nishijo, Taku, and it hadn't worked well. She was worried it might not work this time. But it looked like she was worried over nothing. Her classmates all smiled at her, and she breathed a sigh of relief. She dissolved her D-sword and headed for a desk in the back where nobody was sitting. This desk was also something she'd created from her delusions. Rimi set her bag down on it, but instead of sitting down, she walked toward one of the male students.
Yo, Rimi.
I don't like you anymore.
三角大輔、三角大輔、三角大輔。
That is his name. Rimi said the name 3 times, as if feeling it out.
なんで3回言った？しかもフルネーム。
And then Beetlejuice showed up.
そういう気分だったからだよ。大地。
Misumi was Taku's friend. He had a handsome face and a clean-cut appearance. Rimi had no idea how he'd come to be friends with Taku. It was possible that their relationship was fake, but kept intact only by one of Takumi's delusions. Or maybe Misumi had just taken a liking to him. It didn't matter which. What mattered was that he was Taku's friend, and that Rimi's own delusions had created new memories within him.
タクは？
It's pretty not cool when you think
ま
about
だ
it,
来てねえ
but,
な。
you know, greater good and all
っ
that.
て
I
い
don't
う
know.
か、今日はあいつ来る日か？
多分ね。
さすがタクの保護者だな。あいつのスケジュールをちゃんと把握してるなんてよ。
Rimi couldn't help but chuckle. She felt guilty. She was changing people's memories with her delusions, and nobody but her knew that something had changed. Everybody was friendly and nice to her, but the relationships were all lies. She thought she was used to loneliness, but being in that classroom made her feel so much more alone than she'd ever been in her life. I do like that we're getting all these like little back end scenes of all this just happening in real time. It's neat. Like it's all stuff that we already knew at this point, but it's cool to like just see it play out. I'm gonna be honest, I kind of expected one of those for the crosswalk scene, like from her perspective, but oh. Oh, fast forward. You're very funny sometimes. I love looking at what I named some of these delusion triggers. That one was titled social interaction. Like some of them are so literal and specific, but then some of them are just ramblings of a lunatic. Chain. That makes sense. There's a chain. she's sleeping again. You scary. Hey, there he is again. Sup, dude? I like Fess. I don't know if that's obvious by now, but I like it when she shows up. Also, this another crazy chick never gets old. Another crazy chick. Damn it. Love that noise. Never get tired of that. Deloodle. I freaking love Deloodle. Nice. Oh, is it time? Yeah. That's the best. I think that's the best fast forward detail. I like. Now. These two.
よし、繋がった。
I have bad news for you, my guy. Spoilers, it's the same bad news as the last 6 times. Ow! Bad. Do not like it. Yeet. Yes. No. Nope. Yeah. Fucking Darth Spider. I forget about Darth Spider. Alright, serious. Rimi Sakihata was standing alone in a dark room, head slumped. The room's owner, Takumi Nishijo, was nowhere to be seen. The door hadn't been locked, so she'd been able to walk right in. Rimi looked at the time on her phone. It was a little before 10 p.m. She wondered if Taku was still at Scramble Crossing. She'd wanted to go help him. She'd tried, in fact. The crush of people in Scramble Crossing was so intense that she'd barely been able to move. The boy psychic show ended before she could get to O-Front, and just as it had ended, she'd heard Takumi's voice. He wanted her to get Nanami's hand back. It was rare for Takumi to ask Rimi for something. Nanami had been kidnapped by Nozomi, and right now they were doing such horrible things to her. Takumi's mind reading had shown him that much. Rimi had known Nanami in the past, and hearing this made her heart feel like it would burst. There was a cardboard box on the sofa. Inside was a human hand, Nanami's phone, and a cute little bangle. When she saw it, Rimi fell speechless. She was sad, frustrated, and worried about Nanami. And at the same time, the memories of what she'd suffered in the past came flashing back to her. She bit her lip and spent a while staring at the severed hand. She took a single breath to calm herself down, and then closed the box's lid. After resealing it tightly with masking tape, she put it under her arm and left the room. She took out her phone and used its built-in TV tuner. A moment ago, they'd been doing a live broadcast from Scramble Crossing. She'd wanted to see it, but all the channels were showing nothing but commercials. The live broadcast must have ended. Taku probably wasn't at Scramble Crossing anymore then. That's how you read a sentence. With nothing else to do, Rimi headed back to the room where Takumi waited. The lights were off, and the room was dark. Like always, Takumi was in his wheelchair, not his bed.
ナナミの腕は
持ってきた。
She handed him the box.
ありがとう。
直せるかな？直せるよね。
わからない。でもこの病院なら冷凍保存しておける設備がある。
It would be a lot better to keep it cold rather than just leave it to rot, but there was no guarantee they could ever reattach it. She felt like that's what he was trying to tell her.
大丈夫。きっと治るよ。
Rimi decided to be optimistic.
きっと治るって信じる。もっともその前にナナミちゃんを助け出さなきゃいけないけど。
ナナミは殺されることはないと思う。焦って動くことはないよ。
冷静なんだね。
That's... I'm gonna be honest, that is pretty brutal. That's a pretty cold thing to say. She's being tortured, but I don't think they're gonna kill her, so we can wait on this. I get it, but also... It's pretty harsh.
ごめん。今言った言葉は忘れて。それより、タクは今どこにいるかわかる？
この病院に搬送されてきたよ。精神科の病室で眠ってる。
そうなの？
Rimi's eyes went wide, and she ran out of the room. The hospital was closed to visitors, and the lights were turned down. She walked softly down the hallways as she went. She already knew that people from Nozomi and the Cosmic Church of the Divine Light had infiltrated the hospital's staff. She couldn't do anything that would attract attention. When she got to the room Takumi had told her about, she made sure that there was nobody oh my god. She made sure there was nobody inside before slowly opening the door. The room's furnishings and walls were a solid white, without a trace of warmth to them. I'm gonna be honest, if I was admitted to a psych ward and they put me in this room, if I wasn't insane before, I would certainly be insane afterwards, because that's how do you exist in this room and not lose your mind? Rimi soundlessly walked over to the bed. Taku was sleeping there. His brow was furrowed as if he was in pain. Occasionally he would moan. His forehead was damp with sweat. Rimi softly stroked his cheek.
ごめんね。あなたを守ってあげられなくて。
She whispered sadly. Like, fuck you, lady. Can't contain my disdain for these individuals. Speaking of disdain for individuals, that guy. Oh, she's gonna say the nice thing that I really need to hear right now. You say the nice thing to me. Make me happy. Thank you. Some days you just need to hear that, you know? It's so funny. I'm so evil. Yeah. Alright, we've reached new territory, possibly, unless I just forgot to mark it, in which case we have not reached new territory. Did we? Did we, though? Could it be? For the first time ever? Incredible. Alright, oh god. I forgot, I got so excited for, like, a new thing that I forgot how weird they get. So here we go! I could hear Rimi moving around behind me. The sound of her clothes rustling was getting closer. Oh,
だから
dear god, what
無視しないでよ。
awaits me? Okay, that's fairly wholesome. Before I could turn around, she grabbed me from behind and held me tight. I like Sarah. It's just there. There was a gentle scent like flowers. I could feel her soft breasts pressed up against my back.
寂しいよ。そういうことされると。
Evidently, I'd created a delusion to help me escape from the reality in front of me. The thought made me feel more empty and miserable than excited. I didn't think I'd be able to enjoy this one at all. So instead, I decided to be honest, to say the things I wouldn't be able to say in real life.
僕だって寂しかった。辛かったんだ。リミがこの1週間全然連絡くれなくて。
Yo, is this the rare, elusive, wholesome delusion? Could it be? I could feel her body's movements directly on my back. Her chest was heaving up and down softly with each breath. It made me realize the obvious, that she was a living human being.
ごめん。一緒にいてあげられなくてごめん。
Rimi's arms got tighter around me.
私の中でもまだ迷いがあって、どうしたらいいかわからなくて、ちょっと考えてみようと思って。
Uncertainty? What was she talking about?
そもそも私、タクと一緒にいていいのかなとか、このままの関係を続けるべきなのかなとか。でもね、このままじゃきっとダメなんだ。それじゃあ何も救えない。ねえタク、私が最初に願ったのはさ、一つだけだった。なのにどうして人は、私は際限なく望み続けちゃうんだろうね。
It is so hard for me to take this seriously with Sarah's ass just like prominent. It's I'm trying so hard. Okay, I'm okay.
あの空を見つけた時に、私は
Could we like pan left a little bit or something? I don't know. I didn't know what Rimi was saying. I had no idea how to answer. There was only silence. I could hear the faint sound of her breathing against my ears. The delusion should have ended already, but the silence remained. Nothing happened. Did that mean this wasn't a delusion? Oh, even better, like a wholesome moment. Not even a delusion, just like a wholesome thing. When I realized that it wasn't, my whole body suddenly went tense. Rimi was holding me tight in the real world. She was right up next to me. I could feel my mind threatening to lose control. And now that I think about it, that's probably why it's wholesome, is it's not a delusion. I felt it like if I pushed her onto the bed, she'd let me do it. Okay, you're making it less so, buddy. I gulped. Never thought I'd say it, but thank you, Sarah. Saved it from getting weird.
今の何？
Rimi moved away from me, surprised. The soft sensation disappeared. A complicated mix of emotions appeared within me, half relief and half disappointment. Wait a sec. Wait a second. Rimi had just heard my Seiratan email voice. That was really embarrassing. It's fine. Alright. I can mark that off the off the spreadsheet now. Hooray. Alright, I got next 3 are the
どこ行ったん
non-delusion
だ
ones.
さあ、
Oh, is this the one where it's like Spider-Man's out the window, but like not Spider-Man? I just thought it was because I'm dumb. The window was open. The wind was blowing into the into the room, making the white curtains billow. I can read and speak like an adult. It had been bothering me ever since I came into the room. I felt awful, negative delusions coming on, like she might have jumped out a window. No, we already did that one. If I looked down, I'd see her below, covered in blood, brains splattered on the pavement. Had to see. I walked toward the window with shaking legs, like a man possessed. I stood at the window. The sky was the color of evening. The air was crisp with the scent of fall. What would I see if I looked below? Something terrible? I gulped and very slowly leaned out my head and looked below. Oh my god, I'm losing it. I'm losing my mind. There was nothing there at all. I couldn't see Ayase's body on the ground below. I must have been overthinking things. Relieved, I went to pull my head back inside. Suddenly, I noticed something. The window on the floor below ours, there was a towel there, flapping in the wind. I thought it was just a white towel, but I could see what looked like blue letters on it. The way it was flapping made it hard to read. I really didn't care about it anyway. What should I care about the lettering on a towel? But for some reason, I found myself desperately trying to read it. Then I looked closely and saw that the letters said... Why would it say anything else? Of course that's what it says. Whose eyes are those? Like, no shit. At this point, I couldn't speak. I couldn't look away. And then... an unseen hand pulled the towel inside. Golly gosh, I wonder who that was. Oh man, who could possibly be wanting to fuck with Takumi right now? Who's in the hospital and who could it be? As if they'd known I'd seen it just now. No, that was impossible. There's no way that somebody I knew could be occupying the hospital room exactly below this one. And even if somebody who wasn't a patient was waiting there for me, they'd have no way of knowing if I'd look out the window or not. There weren't any security cameras in the room. It was just a coincidence. It had to be. But what if it wasn't? Terrified, I looked back toward the door. Nobody was there. The door was closed. I backed away from the window, feeling scared and creeped out. Don't think about it. Force yourself not to think about it. It's a coincidence. It's a coincidence. I just kept repeating that to myself over and over.
見ろよタク変な本があるぞ
I looked up in shock when Misumi said my name. You leave Fess's things alone. Oh my god. How's it keep put down? Oh god, I hate you. I hate her. Not her. The one what with the green hair and such. Boom. As he passed by me, he put his hand on my shoulder.
俺もうついていけねえやあとは任せた
What a douche. What a douche. He let out an annoyed sigh and left the room. Don't leave me alone with her. Ayase seemed completely uninterested in Misumi's sudden departure, as if oh my god. Sudden departure, if she'd even noticed at all, is what that says. It was as if he'd never been in the room to begin with. She was always like that, always above everything that was going on around her. It was like she saw something different than everyone else. Yeah.
君が生み出したんでしょ。あの時の花壇。それで悟ったの。君はすでに目覚めていると。
僕はギガロマニアックスじゃないよ。
ギガロ？何？
ギガロマニアックスでしょ。青いセナから聞いた。
青いセナ。そう、彼女ね。一度だけ会ったことがあるわ。グラジオールの黒騎士よ、彼女。
Black Knight of Gladiale? Gigalomaniac? Did the words mean the same thing?
とにかく僕は違うんだ。リソードだって結局手に入れられなかった。
神罰を乗り越えて、そうすれば剣は召喚される。
神罰？
苦しみ、心的負荷の爆発、心の扉の向こう側。
Someone's making something delicious, and I can smell it, and I haven't eaten all day, and So, I'm currently being tortured. Fun.
あるいは精神的拷問。
Alright, that's weird timing for that. Okay.
言い方はいろいろ。
僕これまでにもたくさ
Oh
ん
my god, this smells so good. Even now, I was suffering. The whole country was laughing at me. The police thought I was a killer. Shogun and Yua were threatening me. And then there was Nanami.
私は精神病院にいたわ。子供の頃の話。
うん。
I knew about that. I read about it online. But why was she talking to me about this?
そこには5年弱いた。私の心はとても弱くて、だから攻撃した。周囲にあるものすべてを、同時に自分のことも。
Oh my god. Dude, her voice is so like it's like it just sort of like pokes at your eardrum. It's like it's weird. It's interesting. I don't like hate it, but I also I don't know. I don't know how to describe it. Her voice, especially with the headphones, it's like gives you the brain shivers. Ayase began to speak, slowly, like a whisper. Sitting there in her pastel pajamas, fingers running along the creases in the sheets. There was no trace of the strength I'd seen at her concert. Was the Fess I'd seen then even real?
私はよく窓ガラスを割っていたの。問題児ね。
Mood. There was a small smile in her lips.
割れたガラスの破片。そこにいつもぼんやりと見えていた。
何が？
剣が。でも何年もそれが何なのかわからなかった。ようやくそれがディソードだと知ったのは施設に入って4年ほど経った頃。それまで私は好き放題やっていたけど、ある日施設の職員が一斉に入れ替わって、私は何ヶ月もいろいろな拷問をされて、心が壊れてしまう間際に大いなる意志の声が聞こえて、やっと召喚できたの。
拷問って？
それが神罰だった。邪神を打ち破る力を手に入れるには純粋なる邪神が必要。
Did that mean she was telling me to suffer more? That if I didn't, I wouldn't get the sword? If so, then I'd rather just forget the whole thing. I didn't want to suffer. I'd already been through so much. Just leave me alone. I put my hands up to my head, suddenly feeling an urge to scream as loud as I could. But Ayase's voice wouldn't let me. Oh, I should mark that on the thing. I did it. I did the thing.
なんだ
This one is also this one.
剣を見せてって
Did that mean Rimi could see the D swords too? I thought so for a moment, but I was wrong.
ほらタクが前に剣のこと話してたでしょだから私も見たいなーって
それで引っ叩かれたのか？意味わからん。岸本って剣の話ばっかしてるのにな。さっきも病室に入った途端、グラディエーターがどうとか言い出して、マジビビったぜ。
A little short. Fair enough. This one gets the green treatment.
わかった
Please don't be weird.
ねえ私のことご家族に紹介してくれる
She looked at me with a slightly mischievous grin.
タクのお家にお邪魔することになれば顔を合わせることになるでしょタクはどうするつもりなのかなって思ってねえどう
Isn't that something you usually only do when you're dating somebody? Right now, Rimi and I weren't dating. At least not yet. Wait, what did I mean by not yet? Did I seriously think there was a chance that I could get Rimi to date me? Sure, she was being really nice, but I was just a creepy otaku loser, right? There's no point in getting my hopes up. Who did I think I was, really?
タク教えてってば
その
What should I even say? If I said yes, she'd probably think I thought we were a couple or something. If I said no, she'd probably be hurt. Also, the undulating of the screen is really starting to trip me out. I haven't seen it in a while, so it's really like messing with my head.
ああもうちれったいなこうなったらはっきり言わせてもらっちゃおうかな紹介して
はい
I gave in and nodded, but Rimi seemed satisfied with my answer.
計算通り
Suddenly, there was a voice I recognized. Oh. Surprised, I turned in the direction of the voice just in time to see Nanami poking her head out and smiling at me from behind the shipping container.
ナナミ
What was Nanami doing here? Why was she smiling when she seemed like she was in so much pain on the phone? Also, hand. I was too confused to think. Nanami happily ran over to us, oblivious to my confusion. Oh my god. Okay, that's adorable. Adorable, this image right here. Hold on, how do I, what, nope.
イエーイ
That's not, there's a button. Yay! Just look at this. This is so cute. I know it's not real, but golly gosh, that's so cute. So sweet and adorable and happy. Yay! The two of them exchanged a high five. Huh? What? It was almost like Rimi and Nanami knew each other. Nobody told me they knew each other.
おにびっくりした実は全部ナナとリミさんの作戦だったんだよ
作戦
What if this was literally the true ending right here? Like this, if this was actually the real, actual canonical ending to this game.
そう
It was all just a goofy
お兄と
plan
リミさんの仲を既成事
by
実
not.
にしちゃおう作戦
Just imagining that really is really funny to me.
お兄があんまりにも奥手で 全然リミさんの気持ちに気づこうとしないからナナが協力したの。
Don't tell me.
じゃあお前手首の包帯とかさっきの電話とかは
全部作戦のうち。お兄ったら本気でナナの心配してるからちょっと笑いそうになっちゃった。
Nanami didn't seem to feel guilty at all. He was laughing. I could feel myself getting furious. What a bratty little sister.
ごめんねタク、騙すようなことしちゃって。リミさんは謝らなくてもいいの。お兄が超鈍感なのが悪いんだから。
I can't get over how adorable this image is. Just so happy. I dropped to my knees right there. I felt frustrated at being tricked. I felt angry that she was making fun of me for being worried. I didn't like it. I didn't like what Nanami had done at all. More than that, I'd been worried about nothing. Nanami was just fine. She wasn't hurt. Knowing that made me feel so relieved, like all the tension that had been building up inside me had just disappeared.
タク、大丈夫？お兄、落ち込んでないで。ほら、立って。これからお父さんとお母さんにリミさんを紹介しに行かなくちゃいけないんだから。3人で一緒に帰ろう。
Nanami really was a huge brat. He was always making fun of her big brother. I stood up a little reluctantly and with a small pouting look on my face. Nanami and Rimi smiled at each other. One took my left hand and another my right. The two of them pulled me along as we started to walk. I could feel like my life was about to change for the better. A peaceful, bright future was awaiting me. Lol, JK. But that way, hey, that was one of the rare wholesome delusions. That was exactly what that was. Beautiful. Loved it. Glorious. And suddenly, a high-pitched sound stabbed my ears. It was like a girl's scream. The sound snapping back. Oh wait, oh no. Okay. Snapped me back to my senses and made me realize that all that stuff about Nanami's big plan and Rimi wanting to date me was just a delusion. Hanging off her leg is really funny. Aoi was looking at my D-sword with wide eyes. She'd swung her sword fast and hard, but blocking it was easy. The D-swords were resonating with each other. There was a loud, howling noise coming from them. I could feel her negative emotions, her anger and hate, passing through the weapon into my body. I will never get over how incredibly hilarious the noises Kozupi makes are. No! Hold on, hear it again. Glorious. Taku was lying there in shock behind me. The way he was lying there, the odds of him being able to get away on his own were next to none. I had to deal with Aoi somehow.
その男が何をしたか知っているのか IR2 という公式を
知ってるよ。
I cut her off. I didn't want Taku to hear the formula's name.
それなら
タクを覚醒させればもっと大変なことになる。
その前に殺す。
あなたには無理だよ。
Aoi was aggressive, but she had the wrong idea about how to use the D-sword. She was too direct, too emotional. If you wanted to use the weapon as a sword, you could, but you'd be nothing more than a child playing at sword fighting. Damn. Maybe someone who'd practiced using swords could do something with it, but a teenage girl swinging it around was no threat at all.
西条は死ぬべき男だ。この世に最悪を振りまいたんだから。
Her hatred had taken over her mind. I could see the negative delusions within her. They'd become a black mist, stabbing into my dead spots. She wasn't doing it deliberately, and it wasn't anything special about her. This was a power that gigalomaniacs had. They could perceive the royal of another human's emotions. They could see another person's feelings. I turned my consciousness to face the images that were forcing their way into my mind. The emotions that were driving Aoi to hate, the memories. Please don't show me the baby corpse, please. I don't want to think about that again. God damn it. I could see them. Her suffering and sorrow. The memories of the past that ate at her soul. I could use them to my advantage. I stared at Aoi. I wove a delusion. I created a false image that would tear at the wounds in her heart. Well, that's not very nice of you, Rimi. Aoi shook with surprise. She slowly lowered her sword and stood there, unmoving. Her expression seemed confused. Her eyes were empty. She wasn't looking at me anymore. She wasn't looking at reality anymore. She was inside the delusion I'd created. All I'd done was give her a little push. Her obsessions would do the rest and create the story I wanted her to see. Aoi couldn't fight anymore. I froze. A voice was echoing directly into my head. I looked over at toward the shipping container. I can't get over how, like, her voice is so, just has that, like, just childlike innocence to it. But then she says things like that, and it's terrifying. The blade was wreathed in an overwhelming menace, an innocent ferocity, and a destructive elegance. So that was Orihara's D-sword. She gonna kerthunk you. Oh my god. Dude. She raised the D-sword and laughed loudly. Hold on, just give me a... Don't, That's so funny. That's terrifying, dude. She raised the D-sword and laughed loudly. Yeah. Yeah, she do. Taku screamed.
セナもコズピーも敵なんだ。敵だったんだ。だからリミ殺しちゃえよ。僕は死にたくない。
タク、ちょっと黙って。はーい、ヒストリー。
Orihara smiled happily. God, that face is actually terrifying. Alright, it's even more terrifying now. No, the first one was actually more terrifying. Jesus Christ, those eyes though. It was like fighting a hurricane. Orihara charged at me with inhuman speed, catching me off guard. Her D-sword came down like a stake. I barely managed to block. The impact blew me backwards. I just barely stayed on my feet. That's the word. She followed up immediately with a horizontal slash. I tried to deflect it, but I failed. My sword took the full impact of the blow. My arms went numb. Jesus Christ. Her speed was overwhelming my defenses. I didn't have time to counterattack. Why was she so used to fighting with her D-sword? Her tiny body was flailing the gigantic sword around randomly and seemed to be constantly off balance. Her footsteps were unsteady, like she could fall over at any moment. It was as if she wasn't swinging the blade, but the weapon had a life of its own. As I desperately tried to block Orihara's attacks, I attempted the same trick I'd used on Aoi. I looked at Orihara's negative emotions. And the image that came into my mind was a mirror. I sent the delusion into her dead spot. She suddenly froze. The trumpet. Tears started to fall from her eyes. I sighed, relieved. I needed to take Taku and get out of here now. And then I gasped, realizing something was wrong. I couldn't see Aoi. I looked around. She was standing at the edge of the roof. I hurried over to her, but before I could, her body staggered and fell over the ledge. I heard the sound of something hitting the ground, the sound of something being crushed against the ground. It was faint and far away. Was she dead? Was Aoi dead? Because of the delusion I'd showed her? No, I didn't mean to... Powerful strike hit me from behind, an intense impact, like I was being hit by a truck. My brain rattled in my skull. I flew backwards helplessly. That sound was not fun. I slammed into the ground. Aching pain ran through my whole body. The sword hadn't cut me, but she'd hit me hard with it. My vision was swimming. I tried to stand up, but I couldn't. I could barely tell who I was. I had a mild concussion, probably. I used all my energy to look up. Orihara was staggering around randomly, her hands up against her head. She was shaking her head violently. Had the delusion I showed her made her go crazy? Hold on, you're telling me that psychologically traumatizing people makes them react like this? Crazy! Fucking Takumi just... She was after Taku. She was going to kill Taku. Why didn't he run? Why was he still here? I had to stop her. I clenched my hand tight. But the D-sword wasn't in it. I dropped it when she'd hit me. I dropped it when she'd hit me. Why is that so hard to read? I could see it on the ground just a few feet away. Taku was begging for my help. I had to help him. I couldn't let her kill him. But I was too far away to do anything. Orihara was already holding the D-sword above her head. It would only take a second for her to kill him. She was lying on the ground, shaking, unable to move. In less than a second, it would come down and crush him. I had to help him. There was no time. Countless voices rose up within me. My thoughts were a confused jumble. Countless pairs of eyes stared at me from within my heart. Countless mouths belonging to me were whispering. The whispers joined together, becoming a flood of voices, stealing away my sanity. I forced myself to stand up, but it was all I could do. No, I won't make it. I grit my teeth. Taku was going to die. Kill Kozue Orihara. As long as Taku was safe, nobody else's life mattered. That's not a healthy way to look at things. No, that wasn't true. Kill. Actually, it would be better if Taku died here. I'm gonna be honest, that was the first thing I thought. It's like, why is she so obsessed with saving him? What? She's like, I won't let you kill him. I'm going to kill him. There's like several different instances in which she tries to kill him, so like... Anyways, kill Kozue Orihara. Kill Takumi Nishijo. That's what Takumi wants. What Rimi Sakihara wants, right? No. What do you want? That's actually... At this point, what are you going for here? The D-sword was in my hand. It had been on the ground, but now it was in my hand. Sensation of ripping through flesh. I had no idea how I'd closed the distance between myself and Orihara. My D-sword was stabbed deep into her back. Well, that's one solution, I suppose. This wasn't what I wanted to do. I didn't mean to kill her. Or did I? Was that what I really wanted to do? Orihara turned around at me in shock. No. I didn't mean to kill her. No more. My D-sword wriggled in the wound. Like it had a will of its own. Like it was shaking with joy at being covered in blood. At being able to take a life. I shook my head no. The D-sword, still stuck in her back, began to clack its wings. No, fangs. It was ready to devour her. Oh. I tried to pull it out, but I couldn't. I couldn't move. I couldn't take my hand off the sword. Orihara spat up blood. The blood fell on my sword, and... Blood flew everywhere. Beautiful crimson feathers falling down like rain.
違う。私はこんなの望んでない。
I looked around for someone to help me. Taku was looking at me like I was a monster.
私
I'm starting to think these D-swords aren't as a positive thing as they seem to be. They don't seem to be very, very, very nice things.
殺すつもりなんてなかった。殺すつもりなんてなかったのに。
But I had. These D-swords seem to yearn for slaughter, if nothing else. Senna and Kozupi were dead. They died right in front of me. Rimi had killed them. And now Rimi was asleep on my sofa. After Kozupi had died, Rimi had started shaking and screaming, and then passed out. God damn it. It had taken me a while to recover from the shock, but I was so scared, and I certainly didn't want to see Kozupi's bloody corpse anymore. I picked Rimi up and brought her inside. Rimi would let out an occasional moan, but no matter how many times I called her name, she wouldn't get up. I sat on the floor, waiting for her to wake up. My body was shaking so badly. Kozupi and Senna were dead. They weren't like the new gen victims. They weren't strangers. They were people I knew. People I knew. The three of us had all eaten Garugari-kuns together the other day. Me, Senna, and Kozupi. I looked at the photo we'd taken and bit my lip. Oh, don't look at the photo. That's just gonna make you sad. My mind kept replaying the nightmare I'd just experienced over and over again. The bright red of Kozupi's blood. The slick, glistening red bones sticking out of her body. The empty, lightless eyes. Thank you for that beautiful image. The fear and indescribable, awful feeling that comes with seeing a person cease to be a person. The sight of her tiny body being torn apart refused to leave my brain. I'd never realized just how fragile a human being was. I felt like I was going to throw up. I'd already thrown up 3 times, actually. What had happened to Senna? This was an 8-story building. Nobody could survive a fall from that height. She was probably, no, definitely dead. The 2 of them were dead. This was impossible. It wasn't happening. It was a dream. It had to be a dream. They died in such horrible ways. And it was Rimi that killed them, too. I didn't want to believe it. I couldn't believe it. But it was the truth. I had no idea what had caused Senna and Kozupi to change so abruptly. They said something about IR2. It probably had something to do with the scribbles on my old essay, but that didn't matter now. Knowing that Rimi was a gigalomaniac didn't shock me that much, either. Sentences. Rimi had fought them to protect me. Maybe she'd gone too far, but I wasn't going to blame her for it. Also, to be fair, you quite literally did say, they're my enemies, kill them. So, putting that out there. Still, it wouldn't be long before Rimi and I were arrested by the police. Senna and Kozupi's bodies were still out there. It wouldn't be long at all before somebody found them and called the cops. I couldn't let them arrest me. I wouldn't let them arrest me. I could just tell them the truth. I didn't kill the two of them. It was Rimi. And Senna had attacked us first, so it was self-defense. But of course, that wouldn't work. I knew that much. They were practically ready to arrest me over the crucified case. I was sure it would be the same this time. And I couldn't live without Rimi either. I needed Rimi here to protect me from Shogun. If anything, I was glad Rimi was a gigalomaniac. It meant that Rimi wasn't helpless. She wasn't just a friendly teenage girl. She had the power to fight Shogun, and she was on my side. That's why I wanted her to wake up. I wanted her to wake up and then get rid of Kozupi and Senna's bodies with her delusion power. Then the police couldn't come after us. Nobody had found us yet, right? I held back the urge to vomit and looked toward the door. On the other side of it was Kozupi's bloody corpse. Of the two, it was more likely that they'd find Senna's body before they found hers. But once they found her, it would be all over. With Rimi still asleep, I had to do something to hide them. I was scared. I didn't want to look at a dead body, especially the dead body of someone I knew. I forced myself to go outside anyway, to protect myself and to protect Rimi. I don't want to see bodies. The sun had already set. It was dark on the roof. The moon wasn't out. The clouds had hidden it. I squinted and looked in the direction of Kozupi's body. Huh? I couldn't find Kozupi anywhere. Blood was still there, so it wasn't a dream, but the body was gone. How? Confused, I looked over the edge of the roof to the street below. Nobody was down there. Senna's body wasn't there either. There was a pool of blood, but nobody seemed to have noticed it. Where was the body? When Rimi had passed out, the body had been there. Rimi hadn't used her gigalomaniac power to get rid of it. Then who? Ayase? But she was in the hospital in Yoyogi. Maybe Shogun? But he was my enemy. He wasn't going to do anything that would help me. What was going on? I sighed, feeling a mix of uneasiness and relief that the bodies were gone. I felt the prickling on the back of my neck. I was being watched. That same unknowable gaze. Shogun? Was he watching me?
僕を見るな。
I ran back into my room. Rimi was awake. Oh, good, she's got the scary eyes. She was looking around the room with a confused expression on her face. She'd woken up, evidently, but what was I supposed to say to her? Rimi had been badly traumatized by the shock of killing Senna and Kozupi. Of course she was. It wasn't like PKing in ESO. Oh, no. ESO! She said she didn't mean to kill them, too. I had no idea what to say to a person in that situation, so I said nothing at all. Rimi was looking at me, bewildered.
ここどこかな。
え？
あなたは誰？
Something was wrong.
リミ？どうしちゃったの？
Uh-oh.
リミ？リミって誰だろう？私かな？私リミじゃないよ。
何言ってるんだよ。しっかりしてよ。
ね、私の名前はわかんないや。
嘘でしょ。嘘だよね。
I stormed over to Rimi.
本当だよ
Suddenly, she ran up and grabbed me. She rubbed her cheek up against me like a friendly pet. Caught off guard, I had no idea how to react.
あなた誰？私のお友達かな？きっとそうだよね。お友達ってね、つまりね、私に親切にしてくれる人のこと。あなたは怒らない？
This is not where I was expecting this to go.
怒
Alright.
られるのやだ。あとね、痛いのもすごく嫌だな。
Amnesia. Not just that, regression to being a little girl. I thought that only ever happened in H games. I don't even want to begin to ask what kind of games those are, but... Nope. That particular genre is staying a mile away from. I definitely never thought I'd see it in real life. But maybe it was possible. Rimi had really freaked out when she killed Kozupi. And
ギガロマニアックスとなったものは誰だろうと一度は壊れているんだよ。
that's what Senna had said before she died, too. Maybe Rimi had broken. I made my heart commit suicide. The words came to me. I couldn't remember when I'd heard them, but it felt like someone had said them to me before. What if the shock of killing Kozupi and Senna had caused Rimi to make her own heart commit suicide? And what if the person I was talking to was a newly born personality? That explained why she was acting like a child. DID, Dissociative Identity Disorder. Multiple personalities was the more common name. That's what Yua had said. That's what Yua had said I had. Of course, she was wrong. I didn't have DID. But what if Rimi did now? It was just a guess I had, but the Rimi in front of me now was far different than the one I knew. This Rimi was nothing like the one who'd been so kind to me before, the one who told me she'd stay with me.
こんなの
Freaking Takami's like, now I have to deal with this! I dropped to my knees. I felt awful. Rimi was looking into my eyes, confused. Her eyes were so pure, so innocent. I couldn't look back at her. Maybe I was lucky that Kozupi and Senna's bodies had disappeared, but with Rimi like this, who was going to protect me? Rimi had, if I could call her Rimi, totally lost her memories. Or maybe this Rimi had never had any memories in the first place.
私はリミって言うの？
そうだよ。咲畑リミ。
咲畑リミ。そうなんだ。
She spoke like the name meant nothing to her at all.
あなたは？お名前なんて言うのかな？
僕は西條拓海。
She didn't even know my name? I felt a little depressed, thinking about all the other things I'd have to tell her.
西條拓海。タクだね。タク。
The same. She was calling me the same thing.
ねえねえタク。あのね、私ね、手がベトベトしてるの。
There was dried blood stuck to her hands. It was dark black and belonged to Kozupi. At least, it probably did. Kozupi had disappeared, but the blood was still there.
ベトベト。やだな。
She was looking at her hands glumly. I remembered Kozupi's smile and felt an aching pain in my chest. I tried to ignore it as I went to get a wet towel.
ほら、手出して。
Rimi nervously offered me both her hands. I wiped them with a towel. The white towel quickly turned red. I had to scrub pretty hard to get it all off. When I started scrubbing the spots between her fingers, she laughed happily. She didn't seem to wonder in the slightest why she had blood on her hands. Damn it, why was I the only one concerned here? And why couldn't she wipe her own hands? Why did I have to take care of this little girl? No, I couldn't think that way. Rimi had tried to protect me, and whether intentionally or not, she'd killed someone in the process, and that had broken her. That's why I couldn't abandon her. It was partially my fault that she'd ended up this way.
ほら、綺麗になったよ。
ありがとう。ピカピカだ。私の手。すっきりしたよ。
She grabbed my hand and wrapped her fingers around mine. She was shaking our hands up and down innocently. She looked like a child, having the time of her life. For some reason, seeing her smile made me feel sad.
ねえ、リミ、君は僕を守ってくれる？
守る？何を？
僕を。
私ね、よくわかんない。でもね、タクは私のお友達だから、私に親切にしてくれるよね。だからね、私、タクがいてくれてよかったよ。
This was no good. There was no use counting on Rimi anymore. The Rimi who was going to protect me was nowhere to be seen. I sighed and my head slumped forward. Rimi didn't belong here. Where was her home? I thought about calling her parents, but I couldn't find anything with their contact information on it in her things. The teachers at school would probably know, but it was too late in the day for that. I realized that I didn't really know that much about Rimi. Where did she live? What was her family like? What was her birthday or her blood type? I didn't know anything about her. There was nothing I could do. I'm also curious if in this state, are the delusions she created, like being a student at the school and all that, like does that still apply, or is everybody gonna be like, we don't know who that is? Rimi was tugging at the hem of my clothing and calling my name.
ねえねえタク、私ね、お腹ペコペコ。
I'm also really hungry. God damn it, I was hoping she wouldn't say that. I'm also hungry. What time was it? It was already dark outside. Time for dinner. Yep. But unfortunately, I didn't have anything in the house. I needed to go buy something. I like how they calls it the house.
何が食べたい？
When you had amnesia, did you forget about food too? Maybe you didn't know what kinds of foods there were or what they tasted like. Was I? Did he say that out loud or was that a thought? Hold on. Yeah, no, you definitely didn't say that out loud.
お蕎麦。
お蕎麦好き。
好きなの？なんで？食べたことあるの？
食べたこと、ないかも。でもね、お蕎麦は好きだよ。
What was going on? Were her old memories coming back? Or did she keep the memories of the old Rimi's favorite foods and lose everything else? It'd be a big help to me if her memories came back, but I decided I may as well go to the supermarket to get some soba noodles.
リミ、ここで待ってて。絶対外に出ちゃダメだ。ミシー。
I tried. That's a great mental image. I tried mimicking the pose that Rimi always used to do. I put one hand up to my head like a salute. Maybe this would help her remember something, I thought. But...
石？
That's
かっこいいね。
insanely adorable. It didn't work at all. She was looking at me with eyes filled with wonder and excitement. I suddenly became extremely embarrassed and ran out of the room. I really wish we got a picture of that. On my way to the supermarket, I looked around to see if any cops were nearby. Senna and Kozupi's bodies had both disappeared. If the police were nearby, that would mean there was a witness. And if they weren't, that would mean that nobody had seen what had happened. If it was the latter, that might mean nobody was going to find out for a while. Of course, I also watched the shadows constantly to see if Shogun was lurking nearby too. Fortunately, I wasn't feeling the gaze of God, but still, I didn't want to go out at night. The dark scared me. When I looked into the dark, I could see Senna and Kozupi dying in front of me again. I could see their mangled corpses. I quickly looked away and stared down at my feet as I hurried to the supermarket. When I got back to the base, I pulled out the portable gas burner to boil some soba noodles outside. There was no air circulation inside the container house, and there was a lot of stuff that was flammable too. It was too dangerous to do it inside. I tossed some soba into the pot. Of course, they were cheap, dry, instant noodles. Rimi was looking at the pot, fascinated.
お蕎麦ってこうやって作るんだね。
The pool of blood from when Kozupi had died was still there. It was almost dry now, and at night, it just looked like a dark stain. I broke down some of the cardboard boxes from my room and put them over it. It didn't actually help anything, but at least it saved me from having to look at it.
たくこぼれそうだよ。
I went back to the burner when Rimi called my name. It was boiling too much, and at the point of overflowing out of the pot. Rimi was just watching it, letting out small gasps of amazement. She wasn't moving at all otherwise. This is like really sad. Like, it's really adorable, but also really sad. This is... I don't know how to feel about this, because I want to go like, aw, but then I'm like, no, this is depressing. I don't know how to feel.
火を消して。
Confused, she turned the dial on the burner and made it hotter.
あ溢れたよ。すごい。
いや、すごいじゃないでしょ。
I quickly shoved her out of the way and turned off the heat. A lot of the water had spilled up out of the pot. Well, whatever. As long as it was edible, I didn't need to think too much about how firm the noodles were, or how it tasted. I drained the noodles and washed them with cold water. I didn't know much of anything about cooking soba noodles. I just did that because it's what the instructions said. Ugh.
冷やしとあったかいのと。
Oh my god, I want ramen so bad.
冷たいの。
I put them in a bowl and poured in some of the broth that I'd bought at the store along with the noodles. For toppings, I had green onions. I sliced them up and we were done. I hurried back into the room with Rimi in tow. I could clean up tomorrow when it was light. For now, I didn't want to be outside unless I absolutely had to. I could still smell the blood. And even though I knew it was silly, I was still scared. It felt like Senna and Kozupi might come staggering out of the darkness covered in blood like zombies.
ねたく食べていい？食べていい？
Rimi didn't share any of my worries, it seemed. No, maybe that was why she changed from her last personality into this new one, so that she could forget the fact she'd killed 2 people.
どうぞ。
いただきます。
She grabbed the chopsticks. She was holding them like a fork. She put her lips to the bowl and slipped the noodles up. This was exactly how... What? This was exactly how a LOLI... I get it now! I get it! I got it! That. I get what that means now. That's the thing that confused the shit out of me earlier. I finally understand. LOLI would eat. Thank you. Thank you very much. I mean, okay. Anyways, she'd forgotten how to use chopsticks too. I feel so dumb for not getting that before. Ugh. From the look of it, and how to make soba noodles or turn off a burner too. But she still knew to say, let's eat before she ate her food. It wasn't amnesia though. She just regressed to a childlike state.
食べられないよ。
え？
食べられない。
Rimi was having trouble eating her noodles and getting frustrated. She was trying to eat them the wrong way and it wasn't working.
食べさせて。
How do you eat noodles the wrong way?
なんと
What does that even mean? How are you eating noodles the wrong way? How is that possible? How do you fail to eat noodles? Was she serious? Rimi wanted me to feed her? I felt like I'd become her nurse. No, maybe her father? Please, I couldn't handle having a daughter my own age. It's... yeah. She begged me, exactly like a little girl would. I gave in and sighed.
ほら。
So weird. She brought her mouth down on the noodles and noodles I offered her and began to chew happily.
美味しいわ。
それはよかった。
Suddenly I realized, this was it. This was normal, everyday life with a 3D girl next to me. This was what I wanted. Really? Really? This is what you wanted? I didn't need any dramatic events like in an H game. No getting involved in her deep psychological traumas. No minor misunderstandings that blew up into fiascos. No murders to solve. This daily life was far too boring to be in a game or novel, but this is what I wanted. Now I had it. And it was with Rimi too. I mean, I think I get what he's saying. I guess I'm just like, I wouldn't be able to get over the extra detail that, like, you know, psychological trauma resulting in amnesia is kind of an important factor, and that's less cool. To be honest, I thought Rimi was cute. She even said she'd protect me. I wanted to be with her forever if I could. But this was all a lie. This life wasn't going to last. And this Rimi wasn't Rimi. What I had now could end at any moment. When I thought of that, it made me feel so sad, so lonely, so empty.
戻ってきてよ。リミ、本当に戻ってくれ。
メールだよ。ボケなす。
I gasped. I heard Seiretan's voice from the computer. Somebody had sent me an email. Shogun? That was the first thing I thought. I had a bad feeling. Whatever was in that email, it wasn't good. I didn't want to see it.
僕を見るな。
I felt the gaze. Somebody was watching me. It felt stronger than it usually did. I looked around. Nobody was here but me and Rimi. I'd stopped feeding her, so Rimi had gone back to doing battle with her noodle bowl. She wasn't... So that description is really funny. She wasn't looking at me. Just imagine. Like, how? How do you fail? How do you eat noodles wrong? I don't know. I don't even know what that would look like. Which meant there was only one person who could be looking at me. Whose eyes are those? I didn't even need to ask. I let out a moan as I headed to the PC and checked my messages. Yeah. There was only one new message. Its sender was... Shogun.
くそ。くそ。
What did he want now? Was he going to kidnap Nanami for real this time? Or was he coming to kill me himself? The hairs on my body stood up in terror. The prickling at the back of my neck got even stronger. I felt sick. My head hurt a little too. Please, don't look at me. I opened the email with shaking fingers on the mouse.
あれ?
Wake up? Are we sleeping? Is Takumi sleeping? Is this all a dream? There was nothing there. The title just read, Wake Up. There was no other text. Wake up? What was that supposed to mean? Awaken my gigalomaniac powers or something? No way. I think that is what he's referring to. That is kind of what he wants. It felt like Shogun had said something similar the first time we'd met.
バカにして。僕を怯えさせて、そんなに楽しいか?
I started to get mad. At the same time, I wanted to get rid of the fear that was building up deep in my chest. I slammed my palm down against the keyboard. Noise came from the speakers. Had I broken something? Ow. Oh my god, that's terrifying. I heard a sound. I heard something mixed in with the noise. I checked the PC, a little worried. The MP3 player wasn't running. I didn't have any video sites open on the browser either. I wondered if maybe Shogun had sent a virus along with the email. There weren't any files attached to it. Ow, my ears. Again, I was hearing it again. It hurt to breathe. Sweat was beading on my forehead. Right, I could just kill the sound. If I muted the computer sound, the confusing noise would go away. Ow, my ears! I clicked on the sound icon in the bottom right of the screen. When the volume control menu popped up, I set everything to mute. I wouldn't have to hear anything. That noise almost sounded like a voice, but whatever it was, I wouldn't have to hear it anymore. I was tired, confused, and on edge. Of course I was. I had seen 2 people I know die right in front of me just a few hours before. I had seen something weird at the hospital when I went to see ISA too. And then there was that weird call from Nanami. Whatever that noise was, it was just nerves. Oh, stop! Leave me alone! A voice from the speaker. I heard it clearly. It was him, Shogun's voice, just like when he'd spoken to me at Scramble Crossing.
なんでだよ。ミュートにしたはずだろ。
タク、サードメルトって何?
Rimi looked confused. The expression on her face was still one of childlike innocence. I rushed over to Rimi, grabbed her by both shoulders and shook.
リミ、頼むよ。しっかりしてよ。
痛いよ。
言ってくれ。僕を守るって言ってくれよ。僕は一人じゃ耐えられない。このままじゃ殺される。
痛くしないで。
僕は君を責めないから。君がいてくれないと困るんだ。だから
痛いの。やだ。
Tears fell from her eyes. I was scaring her. Her shoulders were shaking. I slowly let go.
頼むよ。目を覚まし。
And here we are. The floor began to shake violently. An earthquake? And it was bigger than the last one? There was a violent ringing in my ears, the high-pitched sound of something resonating in a way that threatened to split open my head. It was like thousands of tiny needles being stabbed into my ears. My brain was being thrown into a blender. And then... with a terrible impact, my vision turned white. I felt like my body was lying in lukewarm water. I was floating along the surface, gentle waves lapping at me. When I woke up, an impossibly blue sky stretched out as far as I could see. I felt like I could fall into it. It was a strange sky, and there was no sun anywhere. Hadn't I just been in my room? Hadn't it just been nightfall? When did I go outside? When did it become daytime? During the last earthquake, I'd been out for over an hour. Maybe this time I'd been out for the whole night? I remembered the terrible impact of the earthquake. It was like the rumbling of the earth had resonated with the blood flowing through my body, and the vibration threatened to tear me apart. Maybe this was heaven? Maybe I died in that earthquake? Heaven? A creepy otaku like me wouldn't be allowed to go to heaven. Especially since I was just such a terrible older brother, and I couldn't even protect my sister. I'd even forced Rimi to kill Kozupi and Senna. I belonged in hell. Of course, if I had the chance to go to heaven, I'd take it, though. My body felt weird. It was like I was walking on a fluffy cloud or something. I forced myself to sit up. I mean, the big expanse, yes. I hadn't been imagining the waves lapping at me. The world around me was filled with clear water. I looked around and it was nothing but blue as far as the eye could see. I'd been lying on top of the water. Where was I? Was this really heaven? But it felt like I'd seen this place somewhere before.
あの空はどこにあるの？
I heard a voice in my mind, a voice coming from within my memories. Yeah, that's right. I'd seen this in a dream. Rimi had been there. I'd been talking to Rimi as she looked up at the blue sky. She looked so sad. Was this the same dream? But I looked around, and there was nothing here but me. Nobody was here. Rimi wasn't here. It was also silent. Rimi? I called out. I found I couldn't speak, but ripples appeared on the calm water. Are you here? Sounds are vibrations. The vibrations created waves. I could see someone lying in the water between the waves, just like I'd been a moment ago. I stood up. I could see further now. It was Rimi, lying between the waves. Her face was as pale as death. Her eyes were closed. Her hands were crossed over her chest. She wasn't moving at all, just lying there, face up. Rimi, wake up. But there was no response. She was probably dead. And it wasn't just Rimi. The world itself was dead. I stood there confused. And then Rimi's body started to sink beneath the waves. By the time I realized what was happening, she was almost gone. How was I standing on water anyway? I got curious and looked below me. It was nothing but darkness. The sky was so bright, the water seemed so clear. But below it, there was endless, eternal darkness, and Rimi was sinking into it. I had to follow her. What? I had to follow her. I needed her to wake up. But as soon as the thought entered my mind, the water suddenly gave way under me. I sank. My body got heavier. It was like I was underwater, but I could still breathe. And the water was so warm. There was something about it that made you want to stay here forever. Like it wasn't seawater, but amniotic fluid. This must be how a baby felt in its mother's womb. The darkness seemed to go on forever, but it had a bottom. Wow, that flatline for a moment. It was too dark to see my feet, but I could feel something muddy up against the soles of my feet. I stood in the darkness. I looked up, but I couldn't see the water anymore. Here, the darkness hid the blue sky. The only thing to see by was a thin ray of light, falling down from above the darkness. It was illuminating a single point like a spotlight. But there was nothing beneath it. It was lighting up an empty, meaningless point in space. I stepped into the light nervously. It was warm and gentle, but my chest began to ache the second I stepped inside. What was this feeling? It made me want to cry. It made me feel so sad, but I didn't know why. Where was Rimi? What happened to her after she sank? I left the spotlight and searched around in the darkness with my foot. My toes quickly bumped into something soft and springy. I crouched down and touched it. It was so cold I thought it would freeze my fingertips. Little by little, my eyes were getting used to the darkness. Then I realized I was touching a person. Rimi was lying there. Wake up. I shook her. Rimi, wake up. There was no answer. This Rimi wasn't breathing. I grabbed her limp hand and tried to take her pulse. She was dead. There was no pulse at all. Shocked, I looked around. This wasn't the only Rimi that was lying near me, dead. Countless Rimis were lying around me, like someone had entombed them here. They were all dead. Felt like this was a graveyard, the graveyard of Rimi's heart. Countless bubbles appeared before me. I could see that each of them had a different image inside. Am I hearing things? Yes, there's a rumbling. It's like, am I going crazy? And somehow, I knew that these were the memories of her deaths. Jesus Christ, dude.
私の最初の記憶は、落ちてくる雨と、空を覆い隠した、どんよりとした雲。
When was it? I was still in elementary school, 6 years ago maybe? Doesn't matter when it was. My memories aren't connected like that. I could see my dad lying there without a head, and my mom crushed by steel. A second ago, we'd all been in the car, happy to go on a family trip. And then a big truck came out of nowhere, and next thing I knew, it squished the car flat. It hurt so bad, like my whole body had been torn apart. I could barely stay awake. I could still hear the sound of the squealing car brakes playing again and again in my ears.
The 次の記憶は、手術台の上から見た、眩しい光と、男の人の声。
When was it? Right after I lost my parents, 5 years ago maybe? It doesn't matter when it was. My memories aren't connected like that.
担当医に剣のようなものが見えたと言ったそうですね。聞こえていますか？さ。
It felt like he called my name, but I can't remember what that name was. That name was already dead.
まだ傷が癒えていないようですね。ご両親が目の前で亡くなったのもショックでしたか
？Who says that?
では、聞いているだけで結構。私はこの AH 東京総合病院の名誉院長でありスポンサーでもあるノロセと言います。君はギガロマニアックスである可能性があります。ぜひその力に覚醒していただきたい。幸いにも君は天涯孤独になったので親族などの煩わしい連中も湧いては来ない。
Wow.
というわけで、
What a
君
sentence.
は今日をもって死亡扱いとなりました。以後、この地下室で過ごしてもらいます。何の心配もいりません。ここは私しか知らない部屋ですから。頑張って目覚めてください。期待していますよ。君は実験台です。力を持つ非覚醒者を目覚めさせるためには何が必要か、いろいろと試させてもらいます。明日からね。
I mean, he's very straightforward about his evil intentions. I just stared into the lights hanging from the ceiling. I didn't like the dark. Jesus Christ.
次の記憶も、手術台の上から見た、眩しい光と、男の人の声。
When was it? Locked in that basement, I quickly lost track of time. It doesn't matter when it was. My memories aren't connected like that. Oh my god, stop! I don't want to see any more torture. I don't want to. Stop it. Jesus, fuck. No.
実に我慢強いお嬢さんですね、君は。背中の皮膚がただれて血が出ているのになぜ耐えようとするのです？
This is gross. Stop it.
早く目覚めれば楽になるというのに。
I just stared into the lights hanging from the ceiling. They blinded my vision, made it so I didn't have to look at anything else.
次の記憶も
Ah.
手術台の上から見た眩しい光と男の人の声。
When was it? Locked in that basement, I quickly lost track of time. Doesn't matter when it was. My memories aren't connected like that. Oh, Christ. Jesus. No, 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 no. Stop, 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 stop. Oh my god. Okay, okay, okay. Very good. I fixed it. Oh my...
痛いですか？
That was an awful
皮膚
sound.
の表面を切るだけですよ。血はたくさん出ますが死ぬほどではありません。3日も放置すれば可能してかゆみがひどいことになるでしょう。そこからが今回の実験の本番です。安心してください。私は医者なのでね、メスの扱いには慣れています。そうですね。10箇所ほど切り刻みましょうか。
I really hate this. I don't like it. I just stared into the lights hanging from the ceiling. They blinded my vision, made it so I didn't have to look at anything else. Oh my god.
次の記憶も手術台の上から見た眩しい光と男の人の声。
When was it? Locked in that basement, I quickly lost track of time. It doesn't matter when it was. My memories aren't connected like that.
そうですか、かゆいですか。しかし、引っかくことは許しませんよ。人というのは実に不思議なものでしてね。痛みは意外と我慢することができるのですが、かゆみはそうでもないのです。
This is awful. You know what? I think this guy has officially taken the top spot of worst person.
痛みよりもかゆみの方が精神をおかしくさせるには効果的かもしれませんね。
I just stared into the lights hanging from the ceiling. They blinded my vision, made it so I didn't have to look at anything else. And then I killed myself. Oh my god. I don't like this. I don't like
次
it.
の記憶も手術台の上から見た眩しい光と男の人の声。
When was it? Locked in that basement, I quickly lost track of time. Doesn't matter when it was. My memories aren't connected like that. Stop! I hate
左
this.
上腕はこれで粉砕骨折というところですか。まだ目覚めないとは、一体何が足りないのでしょうね。しょうがない。今日の実験はこれぐらいにしておきましょう。ゆっくり休んでください。
I don't even have words for this. This is... I just stared into the lights hanging from the ceiling. They blinded my vision, made it so I didn't have to look at anything else. Then I killed myself. Oh my god, how many more? I can't emotionally handle this anymore.
手
Stop.
術台の上から見た眩しい光と
God.
男の人の声。
When was it? Locked in that basement, I quickly lost track of time. Doesn't matter when it was. My memories aren't connected like that. I get it! I get it! I get it!
ウォーターボーディングはアメリカ CIA がつい最近まで拷問方法として用いていた最も安易で最も効果的で最も苦しませることができる技術です。いわゆる水攻めというものですね。わずかな水の量だけであなたに溺死した錯覚を味わわせることができるのですよ。21世紀において未だにこのような古典的な拷問を行っている。実に面白いではありませんか。
It's not the word I would use. I just stared into the lights hanging from the ceiling. It blinded my vision, made it so I didn't have to look at anything else. Then I killed myself. Please be the last one. Please don't. I don't want.
次の記憶も手術台の上から見た眩しい光と
Help.
男の人の声。
Help me. When was it? Locked in that basement, I quickly lost track of time. Doesn't matter when it was. My memories aren't connected like that. I'm running out of sanity.
私は麻酔を扱うのはこれが初めてなのですが、どうやらうまくいったようですね。気分はいかがですか？君は今、首から下が麻痺している状態です。自分の体を思うままに動かせないというのは、ストレスのたまることだと思いませんか？とりあえず、その状態で1年ほど過ごしてみましょう。1日に1度、点滴で栄養を与えますから、心配はいりません。では、良いお年を。
I really hate this. I don't. This is icky. I just stared into the lights hanging from the ceiling. They blinded my vision, made it so I didn't have to look at anything else. And in that light, I started to see glimpses of what looked like wings. Then I killed myself. Please stop! Please stop!
次の記
I
憶
mean,
は
is that the point? Am I supposed to feel like I'm
手
being
術台
tortured
の上から見た
by this?
眩しい光だけ。
Oh my god. When was it? Locked in that basement, I quickly lost track of time. Doesn't matter when it was. My memories aren't connected like that. No matter how much I screamed, nobody came. I didn't move. I couldn't move. I couldn't move a single finger. I just lay there, gazing into the lights hanging from the ceiling. There was nothing else to do. And in the light, I started to see what looked like many feathers dancing in the air. And then I killed myself.
次の記憶も手術台の上から見た眩しい光だけ。
When was it? Locked in that basement, I quickly lost track of time. I'm also losing track of time. It doesn't matter when it was. My memories aren't connected like that. No matter how much I screamed, nobody came. I didn't move. I couldn't move. I couldn't move a single finger. Just lay there, gazing into the lights hanging from the ceiling. There was nothing else to do. And in the light, I started to see what looked like many feathers dancing in the air. And I killed myself. How many more? Many more times? How many more times? How many more times?
次の記憶は
I don't want to be here anymore. I won't be here
手術
anymore. I
台
want
の
to go
上か
home.
ら見た
I want to go home.
眩しい
Let me
光。
out.
男の
Let
人
me
の
out. I
声。
want to go home. When was it? Locked in that basement, I quickly lost track of time. It doesn't matter when it was. My memories aren't connected like that. Please let me... Please stop
実
this.
に醜い姿ですね。1年もの間そこで横たわっていた気分はどうですか。己の糞便にまみれ、骨と皮だけの姿となり、尊厳を奪われた気分はどうだったのかと聞いているのです。ですが安心してください。殺しはしませんよ。この実験が始まってそろそろ3年になりますか。私はね、君のことが愛おしくてたまらない。かけがえのない存在ですよ、君は。ギガロマニアックスを強制的に覚醒させることはとても難しく時間がかかる。ですが、君には早く目覚めてもらいたいのです。期待していますよ。
I just stared into the lights hanging from the ceiling. It blinded my vision, made it so I didn't have to look at anything else. In the light, I started to see dancing feathers and what looked like wings. And I killed myself. How many of me have come before me? Moving on, we're moving on. Oh my god. It's enough. Just stop it. I had no idea that such a horrible past lurked on the other side of her smile. I grabbed one of Rimi's corpses and held it to my chest. It was so cold, I could tell there was no soul within. But I needed her anyway. I want you to be here for me. I wished. I created a delusion. Wake up, Rimi. She was the one person who would protect me. I knew how selfish it was, but I wanted her to protect me. I knew I didn't have any right to say this after what I'd just seen, but still, it felt like if she was with me, I could change. I could stop being such a loser. So, wake up, Rimi. Oh my god, that was really, really, really brutal. I feel a little sick, I'm gonna be honest. Oh my god. Alright. Recovering. The next thing I knew, I was back in the blue world. The water was rippling with tiny waves. And up from below the water came countless Rimis. I mean, I can count them. There's 5 of them. All of them had closed their eyes. They were standing motionless on the water. They all started to slide above the liquid surface without moving their legs. One Rimi overlapped with another, which then overlapped with another. The Rimis were all fusing together. I watched it all happen in shock. Before too long, there were just 4 Rimis left, and then 2. And then the last 2 Rimis fused and became 1. Her eyes opened. She looked at me. Was this the Rimi I knew, or another one? I didn't know. I was afraid to speak. I waited for her to open her mouth. She smiled gently at me. Okay. And then she posed for me, just as she always used to do. Rimi nodded, and then she gave me a big hug. I buried my face in her chest. I could feel the warmth and the softness of her breasts. That's definitely an important detail right now. Gravity disappeared. Rimi and I began to float in the blue. We lay there as she held me in her arms, softly stroking my hair again and again. It felt so good, like her kindness was all around me. I felt safe, like when my mother had held me when I was young. I wanted to stay like that forever, but I had to make sure that this Rimi was the real Rimi. I lifted my head just a little to look at her. She laughed loudly. She laughed even though her past was so terrible. She looked like she was going to cry, but then she forced herself to smile and ran her fingers through my hair. The next thing I knew, she'd grabbed my jaw and lifted up my head. There was something warm and soft that smelled very, very good pressed up against my lips. Oh my god. The sounds. Stop it. Rimi's face was right in front of me. Her eyes were closed. I could feel her breath on me. So this was a kiss. It was so sweet and felt so good that I thought my brain would melt. This one kiss filled my heart with love for her. I knew I was a creepy otaku loser who couldn't do anything but depend on her for help. But still, I wanted everything she had. I closed my eyes. I tried to remember the feeling so I would never forget it. When I opened them, we were back in my room. Rimi was lying on the floor, still holding me. Our lips slowly parted. Rimi gave me a little smile. It was so cute. We stared at each other. It was really embarrassing. I didn't realize how soft a girl's body was. 3D was the best. No, Takumi! You've gone to the dark side! I finally had a real girlfriend. Nobody could call me a creepy otaku loser anymore.
約束したもんね。タクを守るって。
僕を守ってくれる？
守るよ。タクも、タクミも、ナナちゃんも。
Yeah, he didn't know about that yet. What was she talking about? She ignored my confusion and looked up at the ceiling.
前は匠に心を救ってもらって、今度はタクに心を助けてもらって、だから今度こそ私があなたたちを守る。
I couldn't understand why she was calling me both Taku and Takumi, but if a gigglomaniac like Rimi said, if a gigglomaniac like Rimi was going to protect me, then everything would be okay. No matter what Shogun said to me, Rimi would protect me. As long as I had Rimi, I didn't need anything else.
私頑張るね。頑張って罪滅ぼしもするし、あなたたちからの恩にも報いるから。
Tone. Was she talking about Senna and Kozupi? But that was self-defense. She couldn't blame herself for that. What I didn't understand was what she meant by both of you, though. What other person was she talking about, though?
だから今は眠ってタク。
Each time she spoke, I could feel the vibrations coming from her body. Her fingers were still stroking my hair. It felt so good, and for some reason, I felt so sleepy. I felt so happy, falling asleep there in her arms. I closed my eyes. Oh my god, I'm like exhausted. This... Holy shit. Like, it's not even over, but I am spent. When Rimi Sakihara left the shipping container, the world was completely different than it had been before. A city of death. That was probably the best way to describe it. Several of the buildings in the vicinity had collapsed. The ones that were still standing had deep cracks in their walls.
サードメルト、これほどだなんて。
手遅れだったよ。野呂瀬源一は予定より早くノア2を本格的に稼働させた。
Was he here, or are they talking over brain talk? Oh, nope, there he is. A boy sitting in a wheelchair appeared on the roof. This was an old building, not built to accommodate people with disabilities. It was impossible for the boy to have gotten up here alone, but he was here anyway. Rimi didn't seem surprised to see him at all.
元の君に戻ったみたいだね。
元の私なんていないよ。どっちかっていうと、タクが望んだ私に戻ったっていう感じ。タクがそう望んでくれたことはさ、すごく嬉しかったけどね。
彼はまた理想度なしで力を使った。もう少し追い込めば覚醒できる。
タクのことはそっとしておいてあげて。
Rimi cut him off.
ノア2は私が何とかする。ナナちゃんも私が助ける。あなたも死なせないよ。
君一人じゃ野呂瀬に対抗はできない。それに前から言っているけど、君は普通に生きるべきなんだ。
タクとね、約束したんだ。
There was a fragile smile on Rimi's face as she looked up at the gloomy gray sky above her.
私がタクのこと守るって。だから行くね。ビシッ。
リミ。
Rimi walked past him and down the stairs. The boy couldn't follow her. He just sat back in his wheelchair and sighed.
自分を犠牲にするつもりなの、リミ。
Noah 2, bringer of disaster, or perhaps the creator of mankind's utopia. Rimi didn't really care whichever it was, she was going to destroy it. Rimi knew where Noah 2 was. A shared awareness, quietly and cleverly slipped into the human mind. It was right in front of Shibuya Station. It was in a building that had supposedly been torn down years ago. Nobody suspected a thing. Nobody went inside. Rimi opened the door to what had once been a planetarium and stepped inside. Hey, Nanami. Her eyes went wide when she saw what was inside. It was a device, impossibly huge and monstrous. The room was dome-like, with the device at its center. There was a small, eerie sound that echoed throughout the huge space. It was low, like a beast's growling. The sound meant the device was online. Oh my god, there is a sound. You barely hear it. Noah 2. Nanami Nishijo was being held right next to it. Her uniform was torn. There was a bloody bandage on her right hand, and her head was slumped forward, limp. She was terribly pale, too. Rimi was struck wordless at the sight. Like Jesus, nailed to a cross. No, it wasn't a cross that held her captive. It was a terrible, almost malicious shape. But I'm glad they finally, like, acknowledged the fact that they kept describing it as a cross-shaped thing. It's not shaped like a cross at all. Looks more like scissors. All the evil in the world, all the chaos in the world, all the wickedness in the world. It was all these things and more. Rimi quickly and cautiously looked around. There was no one else in the room but Nanami. She was looking for Genichi Norose, the man who was once her torturer and was now the leader of the Noah 2 project, but he wasn't here. She was surprised, but she decided to prioritize saving Nanami. She ran over to the strange object holding her.
Nana-chan, shikkari.
She brought Nanami down and was relieved to see that she was still breathing. The first thing she had to do was get her somewhere safe. She went to help her up, but a terrible pain in her back, like something tearing through her. Rimi spat up blood. The blood fell on Nanami's clothes.
久々の再会だというのに、私には挨拶もなしですか?
I really hope she planned for this. This seems like a really obvious trap. She turned around, trying to hold back the pain. Wait, what? Trying to hold back to the pain. Not quite. Ah, hey, this guy. Genichiro, I keep wanting to say Genichiro. It's Genichi. Genichi Norose was standing right there. In his hand was the strange object that had been holding Nanami. It was a sword. It was Genichi Norose's D-sword. And now it was stabbing into her body. Norose slowly pulled back his hand. The sharp blades of the D-sword slid through her body, cutting into her bones. Rimi arched her back and began to flail from the pain. More of this! Stop it!
痛みには慣れているはずでしょ?
Norose's blade left her body. The blood poured out everywhere. All the nerves inside her were screaming. The pain threatened to make her pass out.
その娘は西条匠をおびき寄せる貴重な餌なのです。勝手に連れて行かれては困りますね。
Rimi knew exactly how powerful a gigolomaniac Norose was. He'd held her for over 3 years. She couldn't beat him in a head-on fight, but she knew he wouldn't let her escape either. At least, I have to get Nana out of here. The taste of blood was filling her mouth. She kept feeling a violent urge to vomit. The open wound on her back burned like it was on fire. She could barely move from the pain, and the blood just kept coming. She almost passed out. It was so cold. Her vision was going blurry. She could just barely make out the cruel smile on Norose's face. Maybe this was the end. Rimi couldn't even imagine a situation where she'd escape alive. The only thoughts in her mind were of pure despair.
僕の力をあげるよ。
It was a voice she recognized. Takumi Nishijo, the boy who called himself Shogun. The voice was coming from far away, like telepathy. It used the same principles as mind reading, a power that only gigalomaniacs had.
僕の最後の妄想を君に。
匠。
君にこんな辛い役目を任せてしまってごめん。もう余計なことは言わない。君の意志を曲げることは無理だって分かったから。死ぬつもりなんだね。
There was a way to get out of this alive. I would have taken it.
彼が目覚めなかった以上、僕にはどうすることもできない。だからせめて僕の最後の妄想を君に。
何言ってるの？あなたはそんなことしなくても。
Rimi screamed out to a person who wasn't even here.
君だけを死なせるわけにはいかないよ。すべての元凶は僕なんだから。もういいんだ。リミ、ノロセを殺してほしい。ノア2を破壊してほしい。僕がサポートするから。
Rimi bit her lip, wiped away her tears, and tried her best to keep herself from passing out. She real booted her D-sword. Countless feathers fell from the sky. She raised the sword, holding Nanami in one hand. Blood was pooling at her feet. It hadn't stopped. It wasn't going to. This song. Naruse brought his D-sword down on her. Rimi blocked with her own, making sure to keep Nanami away from the blade, but he was so much bigger than her. Her frail body couldn't handle the force of his attack. She flew backwards and collided with a wall. A crack formed in the wall of the planetarium.
わざわざ生かしておいてやったというのに恩をあだで返すとは。またいたぶられたいのですか？
Naruse slowly began to walk toward her. There was confidence in his eyes. Rimi was no threat to him.
変態だよね、あなたって。
Rimi grinned, but her grin was stiff and frozen on her face. And then, for some reason, she swung her sword at the cracked wall behind her. The wall fell away, revealing the sky outside. It was raining. Dark clouds were hanging low above them.
逃げようとでも。
逃げないよ。でも。
Rimi sat Nanami down on the ground. She held her from behind, keeping the D-sword in one hand.
ナナちゃんは関係ないでしょ。
Rimi created a delusion, a bright blast of light. When it disappeared, her D-sword was gone, and instead there were wings of the purest white on Nanami's back. The white wings, impossibly pure, enveloped her bloody body. She was like an angel, her appearance horrible to look at, but still beautiful. Nanami was unconscious, but the wings took flight, as if they had a will of their own. Rimi moved away from Nanami. As Naruse watched, confused, Nanami flew through the hole in the planetarium wall and out into the sky around them. She glided slowly away in the rainy Shibuya sky. Rimi watched her go, unarmed.
ナナちゃん、無事でいて。
理想像を妄想によって翼としたのですか？それで君は逃げないのですか？
Naruse was close enough now to kill her with the sword. A single movement of his arm would sever her head. She was watching him, however, with no fear in her eyes.
まだ逃げられないよ。
is the plan here? What is the plan here?
あなたを殺さなきゃいけないから。
She brought a gleaming cross out from her pocket. It wasn't a cross, it was a stake. The same as the cross-shaped stakes used in the crucified murder. Rimi had just real-booted it. Narose chuckled as he looked at it.
私を殺す？そのようなおもちゃでですか？随分と舐められたものですね。
His attack was fast. The D-sword he held was bigger than he was, and it slashed open her side with a speed that was impossible according to the laws of physics. Only after her body had staggered from the impact did she realize she'd been cut. She collapsed, screaming from the pain. Narose had deliberately used a less than lethal stroke. He could have killed her, but he chose not to. As she writhed on the ground in pain, he walked over to her and brought his foot down hard on her arm. Gritting her teeth and panting for breath, she stopped moving. She had no choice but to stop moving. The tip of Narose's massive D-sword was stabbed into her back, but he hadn't run her through yet.
もう一度聞かせてもらっていいでしょうか。やめませんよ。
He pressed down hard as she begged for him to stop. Dude, this guy sucks. The tip of the blades dug even deeper into her bloody body. It was like he was oh my god. It was like he was pinning an insect to a block.
それで私を殺すと言いましたか。それとも私の聞き間違いでしょうか。
Rimi was lying face down on the ground. She reached forward with one arm and grabbed Narose's leg. There was a firm resolve burning deep within her tear-stained eyes. She glared up at Narose from below.
殺してあげる。私があなたを。
Narose pulled out his sword and kicked her in the jaw as hard as he could. Her body rolled along the floor like a doll.
しばらく会わないうちに実に不愉快な人間になったようですね。すでに君は用済みです。利用価値があるかと思い生かしておきましたが、もういりません。
Rimi was already at death's door. She'd gotten up and was trying to crawl toward me. But with the... Am I in Narose's mind now? What? She'd gotten up and was trying to crawl towards me, but with no D-sword and no ability to walk, she was as good as dead.
私に生意気な口を叩いたことを後悔しながら死んでいってください。例えばそうですね。これから30年ほど私が君に毎日拷問を施してあげましょうか。
Oh, you're gross.
妄想の中でね。
Gross. Narose's lips twisted. He stared at Rimi as the feathers fell around him. He formed a delusion. He held his D-sword tight. He expanded the channel to the Dirac Sea. The particles and antiparticles needed to manifest his delusion were born. Of those, he only took the former, and sent them into Rimi Sakihara's dead spots, using his gaze.
それを待ってた。
何？
In an instant, the feathers turned eyes. What the fuck is happening? Until that moment, the only eyes looking at Narose had been Rimi's, but now he was surrounded by 1,000 eyes, all floating in the air.
その目。誰の目？
This was the final delusion that Takumi had given her. Ah! Okay. Just stare him to death, alright. The particles he'd created were blocked by innumerable eyes. Also, they're playing the sick track! I never reached her dead spots. Oh, hello again. And then all the eyes linked with the Dirac Sea, creating anti-particles of their own. An impregnable defense against a Gigalomaniac's power. Only Takumi Nishijo could create such a thing. Only a Gigalomaniac with enough power to give life to an entire human being was capable of such a feat. And even then, only by using the last dying embers of his life. Monstrous delusion, given life by real booting. Oh my god. This is sick, dude! Narose gasped in shock as the eyes surrounded him. Wherever he looked, there were eyes staring back at him. And more were appearing out of nowhere. Soon he saw nothing but eyes, and the eyes were getting closer. An instinctive fear took over. He clenched his jaw and began to wildly flail about his D-sword. Blood spurted from the eyes he struck, and they closed and disappeared. But behind them were more. No matter how many he destroyed, more came. Look at me!
それならもう一生目を開けなければいい。
Narose felt a pressure in his chest, and then a pain signal reached his brain. The eyes all disappeared like lifting fog. Rimi was right in front of him, and the cross-shaped stake in her hand was stabbed deep into his chest. Narose was dead. That was so sick, dude. That was so badass. After she was sure he was gone, Rimi dropped helplessly to her knees. She was bleeding badly, and her face was pale and clammy. She was barely even conscious. Her breathing was ragged and painful. Her vision had already gone dark. She could just barely make out the eerie sounds made by the still functional Noah too. But I'm probably going to need someone else to destroy it.
ごめんね。
The perspective, who's thinking right now? So it's speaking about her in the third person, like her breathing, her vision, but I don't understand whose perspective is the narrative from. I'm so confused. She whispered, her voice barely audible.
約束守れそうにないみたい。ナナちゃん助けたから。それで罪滅ぼしなんかにはならないけど、助けたから。
She slowly raised her head. She couldn't see it, but the walls of the wall, singular, one wall, but the wall of the planetarium in front of her was shattered. Beyond it lay the sky. It had been raining a moment ago. But what about now? She couldn't see what color the sky was now, but she looked up at it and smiled, just a little.
あの空をあなたともう一度見たかったな。タク、ありがとう。
I opened the door to the base and headed outside. A beautiful blue sky spread out before me. It felt like it had been raining just a moment ago. It must have cleared up in an instant. Rimi was nowhere to be seen. She disappeared without a word. She'd left me once again. I waited a few hours, but she didn't come back. Instead, waiting outside of the room for me was... Your bestest friend! The wrinkled boy in the wheelchair was looking at me. He seemed almost upset, like he didn't want to be here. I dropped to the ground in fear.
君はこれから自由だよ。
I was about to say, now he literally has no reason to torture him anymore, so he's probably gonna be like, hey, I'm done with you. It'd be cool if he, at the very least explained a little bit, like, hey, sorry for, you know, torturing your, psychologically torturing you, but, you know, it was for the greater good, all that, but I imagine he's not gonna explain anything. He's just gonna be like, I'm not gonna torture you anymore, bye.
僕はあと1時間もしないうちに生き絶えるだろう。
That too.
君に脅威を与える存在はリミが殺してくれた。
I gasped when I heard him say her name. Rimi had gone to protect me?
青井瀬名と折原梢の死体は僕が隠しておいた。七海は病院に収容された。だから君はもう自由だ。
All right, I'm letting you out. All right. What was he talking about? Wasn't he my enemy?
リミはどこへ？
リミはもう戻ってこないよ。
え？
それじゃあ。
Practiced hand, he turned his wheelchair around until his back was to me. I blinked, and in the span of less than a second, he was gone. What was going on? What had happened? I heard a low rumble in the distance. I looked over toward the center of Shibuya and saw a single trail of black smoke rising up into the sky. Maybe there was an explosion? Something had happened. Something was happening. A riot? Something more supernatural? Maybe a fight between two gigalomaniacs? I was so scared. I was scared of the strange things Shogun had just said to me. I didn't want to go outside.
リミはもう戻ってこないよ。
Rimi might be there. I felt strangely calm, even though she'd left me again. It was odd, but I didn't feel like she betrayed me. Instead, I was sure that she was somewhere out there, all alone, doing her best for me. But Rimi, you've already done your best for so long. You've suffered so much. I am running out of brain. You don't need to suffer anymore. It's not fair. I remembered the soft feeling of her lips. I decided to go look for her. I decided to stop hiding in my room and being afraid. Things were about to change. For me and for her. Our lives were going to be different from now on. There were so many happy things, so many wonderful things waiting for us. We just had to believe.
朝一緒に学校行って、学校では休み時間にどうでもいいこと話して、お昼休みは一緒にご飯食べて、夕方一緒に帰って、帰るついでにたまにどこかのお店に寄ったりして、タクの部屋でちょっとだけおしゃべりして、それでまた明日ねって手を振って別れて、そんなのでいいなら私いくらでもしてあげるよ。そういうの結構憧れなんだ。
I understood now. What Rimi had meant. How much she'd longed for that simple, normal life. Thinking back, we hadn't spent much time together at all. The time we did spend together was fun. It made me happy. My life had been so empty, so dead, when I was all alone by myself in my room. Her smile had given me hope. She'd made me feel like a brighter future might be coming. She'd smiled for me. So from now on, it was time for Rimi to smile for herself. I refused to believe she wasn't coming back. This wasn't just my usual refusal to accept reality. This was my resolve. The only words I believe were the words of the girl who'd said she'd always be there for me. Rimi. Now, it's time to go. Go, Takumi Nishijo. Go and see Rimi again. I headed into the shattered remains of Shibuya. These go fast, I gotta read. Speed read! Wait for me, Rimi. I'll find you. Alright, that was okay. And this time, thought it was over. It will be my turn to stay with you. That one was rough. That one, like, I like that one, but oh my god, that one part in the middle, that was brutal. I liked everything else though. And I like that too. It was harsh. All right, another one in the bank. Also, you know, jamming. I'm so invested to see like to get to the end of this game. I like at this point I am really invested in the conclusion. I think we're at I'm at the final one, right? Our Anima Archetype. All right. Blue sky. There it is. I did it. I made it to the next time I play this, I'll be doing that. So I was gonna do something. I can check the name of that song is because I Hearts Tundere player. I just noticed that. Why does it say that? It would be this one. Yeah, I really like that song. A lot of the ending songs are great. That one was ridiculous. I don't even want to think. No, we're not talking about that ending. Nope, that ending doesn't exist. I don't know. No, doesn't exist. That one was neat. That ending I think that one's still my favorite. Like I'd say is awesome and badass. This one, like. My heart. That was like just really it like man. And then this one also pretty good. These man, music. Boy, I sure do love music. I got 100% whose eyes are those. I don't know what that means. Like playtime, I understand what that refers to. CG completion, I understand what that refers to. Endings reached, I understand what that refers to. Whose eyes are those? I don't know what that refers to. Is that the tips list? Maybe it refers to the tips list? No, because there's still question marks in the tips list. I like how the tips list defaults to waterboarding. That's fun. That's a real fun. Does it Geneva Conventions? Yeah. America insists the waterboarding does not violate the Geneva Convention. Oh, America. Anyways, bye.